Hello, dear viewers. It is our pleasure to welcome you to this latest edition of the news in English. My name is Serge Nhore. We'll begin with the headlines. The First Lady of Rwanda has attended a commemoration event in Nyanza district to remember the last Queen of Rwanda, the late Rosary Gichanda. In Masaka district of southern Uganda, an event has taken place to mark 30 years since the genocide against the Tutsi in Rwanda. Welcome to this edition. Thank you so much for joining us. Now, the First Lady of Rwanda has attended a commemoration event in Nyanza district to remember the last Queen of Rwanda, the late Rosary Gichanda. The event began with the laying of flowers on the grave of the Queen that is located next to the grave of her husband, King Mutara III Rudahigwa. The commemoration event continued at the King's Palace Museum, Rukari, where testimonies were heard from those who knew and lived with the late Queen, noting on her perseverance during the terrible times the country endured before and during the genocide against the Tutsi, right until her death. Queen Rosary Gichanda was shot and killed along with 6 others on the 20th of April in 1994 on the orders of Captain Ildefonse Nizeyimana, who was stationed at the nearby Esso military base. Only one person survived out of her group that faced the firing squad. Present at the commemoration event was the Minister of National Unity and Civic Engagement, and he addressed those present, showing them the letter of expulsion that was issued to the Queen by Belgian authorities just 1 month before the atrocities of 1994 began, while she was in Belgium undergoing treatment, forcing her to return to Rwanda and to her death. Dr. Jean Damascene Bizimana reiterated that the letter, along with hundreds of pages of reports that the Belgian government received from its own intelligence officers between January and March in 1994, leave no doubt that they knew what was going to happen in Rwanda, and that they nevertheless sent her back. Rosary Gichanda was born in 1928 and was married to King Mutara III Rudahigwa in 1942. She died in 1994 at the age of 66. Now, survivors in Bigogwe say that the genocide against the Tutsi in 1994 was a result of a long-standing plan. Over the years, the Tutsi in that area were systematically targeted with killings, imprisonment, and torture inflicted by soldiers who were at the Bigogwe military camp. Olive Ntete has the details.
Gerard Biseruka, an 80-year-old man born in Bigogwe, currently resides there. He was deprived of education opportunities, unable to study beyond high school due to discrimination against the Tutsi. Prior to the 1994 genocide against the Tutsi, several of his family members were killed, but he survived. As an example, he recalls an incident from the 1960s.
In the following years, they would come, burn houses, loot our property, and then leave. At that time, it wasn't as bad. One could go to his or her relatives until the situation calmed down. They would simply burn houses and depart.
Gerard recounts that over the years, Tutsi people in Bigogwe faced the grim fate of either being killed or imprisoned. He himself experienced the horrors of imprisonment in the Bigogwe military camp for an extended period. During this time, he and others endured torturous treatment before being taken to Gisenyi city for execution.
One of the soldiers said that one of the tactical vehicles was here and it was moving, ready to carry people. Militias would roam around beating Tutsi until they reached Gisenyi town. They took them, and before that, one of the soldiers suggested that they should take me as well. However, another one refused, saying that I would be next. That's how I was spared that day. But they took me to another horrible place.
The Commune Rouge earned its name during the genocide, a period marked by the systematic killing of Tutsi from Bigogwe and other areas within the former prefecture of Gisenyi. Survivors recount that this region became synonymous with mass violence and targeted killings of Tutsi during the genocide.
They dragged me here at 3 a.m. together with the bodies of other people they had killed. I was barely alive. Along with my wife, they threw us into the pit, but the Holy Spirit saved me. Nobody else would have done that. At the time, we were newlyweds, and my wife was pregnant, but she didn't make it. She lost her life. The genocide happened in 1994, but it's as if we had been living through that horrific moment even before these pits were dug. They used to throw people into these pits before the genocide itself began.
The genocide plan reached its culmination in the entire country, extending even into the Bigogwe areas. Tutsi were systematically targeted and killed in various communes where the Bigogwe community held influence. Kabaradini Foib and Viseruka Gerard vividly described the intensity and specificity of the genocide in Bigogwe during April 1994. In 1994, it was worse. We lost most of our people here in this forest. They would hunt us down using dogs. It was catastrophic. Many families were lost. Many were left alone. It was so bad that I don't even want to recall it.
Because many fled into the forest, animals devoured them, and we didn't even get a chance to bury them. When the killings began in 1994, people sought refuge in churches, believing they were safe in holy places. However, they were killed regardless and thrown into pits. There are so many pits around here where they were thrown.
30 years have passed since the genocide was stopped, yet survivors persist in their efforts to rebuild and forge a new life. They express confidence in a brighter future, drawing strength from the progress achieved thus far. Now we have hope for the future. We have our country, Rwanda, which loves us, and God loved us even before and rescued us. We are also grateful to the former RP in Inkotanyi, led by His Excellency Paul Kagame. Even today, together with the government, he managed to build a united Rwanda. That is among the things I'm grateful for. Based on that unity, I would love to tell all survivors that they should consider and remember that we are all Rwandans. We are one. We are grateful that today we are able to have identification cards that don't have ethnic groups listed on them, since we know where the previous system led us.
amarangamuntu y'amoko aho yatugejeje niyo yatumye abantu benshi bapfa kuko no kwitiranya baritiranyaga.
The significance of the Bigogwe area, particularly within the Gisenyi prefecture, as the birthplace of numerous high-ranking leaders in both the government and military, alongside the presence of a military training camp, contributed significantly to the exceptional and Haitian violence of the genocide against the Tutsi in 1994 in this area of Bigogwe. Olive Nete, RTV News.
Thank you, Olive. Now, in Masaka district of southern Uganda, an event has taken place to mark 30 years since the genocide against the Tutsi here in Rwanda. The event was organized by the Rwandan High Commission in Uganda in collaboration with the association Humura Victoria Warakoze, and was attended by the Rwandan High Commissioner to Uganda, members of the diplomatic corps in that country, senior officers from the Uganda People's Defense Force, Rwandan students studying in Uganda, and friends of Rwanda living in that country. Genocide survivors who had their loved ones thrown into rivers here in Rwanda that ended up carrying their bodies all the way to Lake Victoria, where they were later buried close to its shores, commended the fact that they were able to remember and honor their loved ones, knowing that they were given a decent burial. The survivors also thanked the government of Rwanda for helping them to hold commemoration events in Uganda, including providing doctors to travel with them to assist any who may experience trauma symptoms while on the trip. More than 10,000 bodies of genocide victims are buried at the Golo Memorial Site. Now, in today's episode of the health segment, we will dig deeper, that is, into identifying trauma as a psychological disorder in one part of the discussion with Professor Vincent Seziwera, the director of the Center for Mental Health at the University of Rwanda, who is also a clinical psychologist. He will guide us through the profound understanding of trauma, shedding light on its definition, its manifestation, and some of the signs that are often go unnoticed. Take a look.
The concept of trauma was used in medicine in the 60s. You will see that trauma means wounds and injury. When there is an accident, people being injured, wounded physically. But now in the domain of psychology, psychiatry, the concept is also used to mean wounds and injury from the psychological perspective. What I mean by psychological perspective is being affected at the cognitive level, at the thinking level, at the emotional level, and at the behavior level. And the root causes of those changes include being exposed to circumstances or events that are felt to be shocking, shocking in a way of inducing a distress, and that distress is mostly a distress from the event that would threatening one's life, being confronted to death from violence or any other harming circumstances like violence or abuse. So in psychology, in psychiatry, or from the mental health perspective, a person, when a person was exposed to such a kind of events, we always see a number of changes in the way the person thinks, in the way the person feels and behaves, which will result in poor performance in daily life, socially and professionally, and even engaging in routines like feeding yourself and hygiene and everything.
What are some of the common signs and symptoms of a person living with trauma?
I think it will depend. It will depend, one, the magnitude of the event, the magnitude, the duration of the traumatic circumstances, and even the past history of the person. But in many cases, what we will see that after the person has experienced the traumatic event, the person will tend to live and behave as if the person is still in the same situation, which we see in the naming of re-experiencing. The person tends to re-experience the event in different ways, either through dreams. The person have this kind of obsessive dreams around the event, or the person reacting when reminded about the event. The person will react with the same emotions as it was at that moment. And the most prevalent emotions, you have a lot of fear and anxiety. The other thing we see, because there's re-experiencing reactions are very painful. And then the person tends to develop a number of coping mechanisms. By coping here we mean the person attempting to face or to find a way of managing these emotional and thoughts that are painful. The person will develop a number of strategies. But what is unusual, these strategies are maladaptive, are not really helpful. As an example, we will see that the person will always, in most cases, try to avoid all the reminders, all the triggers, because when the person is reminded, then you have these painful emotions and the person will feel unhappy, it will sustain that sense and feeling of overwhelming feeling overwhelmed. Then the person put in place strategies, coping strategies, mostly avoidance, and the avoidance can be avoiding people, avoiding conversation, avoiding places, but also creating some kind of distraction. You have behavior avoidance, but you have also kind of cognitive avoidance. The thought suppressions, I don't want to think about it, because when I think about it, then the thinking triggers the emotions. The other thing that is seen in people who are traumatized, who experienced traumatic circumstances in their life, you will see a kind of emotional dysregulation, poor management of emotions, and also distortion in their thinking. They tended to be selective in their thinking, in their perception, and the selection is oriented to threatening materials, to stressful stimuli when they are confronted to a situation, whether good or not. Their attention is very selective. They will always anticipate threat in each and everything they see. So we have also kind of social and clinical impairment. The person being socially different when you compare to how he or she was before and after, which will lead to some kind of social isolation, which will lead to very severe loneliness and poor performance in daily life, professionally, because of that kind of restricting the social network. So all these manifestations, not only one, but all together, are part of that big spectrum of trauma-related difficulties.
To other health matters, local residents at Busanza in Kanombe sector are recommending the construction of a hospital there by Believers Eastern Church that originates from India. The church's officials say they chose to build a hospital in Rwanda because of the good governance they have witnessed here.
The former ambassador of Rwanda to India had come to our hospital and seen the facilities and the services that we provide. And he asked the leaders of our church, our Honorable Metropolitan, why not bring this facility to Rwanda? We were curious because thinking about that, it is in Africa, we had a fear, we don't know how it brings. But when we researched and when we initially came to this country, the conception changed. Rwanda is not what we think about. It's so safe. It is one of the safest countries in Africa, I would say in the world. So clean. And I'm proud of our President, His Excellency Paul Kagame, for his governance and his leadership. It's exemplary. The best example any people can have. The way he is leading the country, the way the country is now, it's excellent. And looking at all these positive things around Rwanda, there is no other place we should bring this. And also there is so much need in the country and also in other nations of Africa. We said Rwanda is the best place to bring and serve the people.
The church has also helped to test more than 500 children for different illnesses. The hospital will be completed in 2 years at a cost of $60 million and will include a research wing for university students. Now, in light of the observance, that is the annual observance of World Hemophilia Day, healthcare professionals are emphasizing the crucial need for enhanced awareness regarding the disorder. Misconceptions often lead people to mistake its symptoms for other diseases, resulting in delayed hospital visits and higher health risks. Olive Nete with more.
Amos Nsengiyumva, aged 29, received his diagnosis of hemophilia at the age of 7 during his primary school years. He diligently takes precautionary measures to steer clear of any situations that might trigger bleeding episodes. Meanwhile, Clementine Mujawimana faces a particular challenging situation, as 3 out of her 4 sons have hemophilia. She expresses the relentless commitment needed to manage their condition, emphasizing her frequent visits to the doctor as essential for administering medication to alleviate the severity of their symptoms.
I grew up with the disease, but it began to get worse when I started school. I noticed that I would easily swell up, especially when playing with other kids or when I fell down. As I got older, people in my community began to attribute my condition to witchcraft, suggesting that I seek treatment from traditional healers. Studying became increasingly challenging for me as I would frequently fall ill.
Balancing self-development with my responsibilities is challenging, given the frequent hospital visits and school-related issues my children encounter due to their lack of self-care knowledge. It is rare for a week to pass without needing to take them to the hospital for treatment. Sylvestre Murindabyuma, director of the Hemophilia Patients and Families Association in Rwanda, acknowledges the progress made, such as the provision of free treatment for patients. However, he emphasizes the ongoing necessity for advocacy efforts to address various challenges and obstacles that individuals with hemophilia continue to face.
The most challenge we face about the hemophilia disease is just the means of diagnosis first, and secondly, the means of traveling from home to CHUK, where we have the only one coagulation factor machine for testing the hemophilia to determine hemophilia A, to determine hemophilia B.
Dr. Evarist Ntaganda from the Non-Communicable Disease Division at the Rwanda Biomedical Center affirms their intensified efforts in expanding awareness campaigns nationwide. The primary objective is to ensure that the public is well informed about hemophilia, thus minimizing the likelihood of confusion with other conditions.
One of the challenges that we had is lack of awareness. So we need to raise awareness in the public, such that if people have this kind of condition, they should present the facility as early as possible, and then those lower facilities will treat them, and if it cannot work at their level, then they are referred to the higher level, including the University Teaching Hospital, King Faisal, to be treated by the experts there.
To date, Rwanda has officially recorded 94 cases of hemophilia patients. However, research indicates a significantly higher potential prevalence, estimating up to 1,500 individuals affected by the disorder. Olive Nete, RTV News.
Let's just leave it at that because our time is up. As always, I'm glad you're able to join us. I hope to see you soon. Goodbye.